Hi, how's it going, everybody? My name is Tet de jour, which is a French um, interpretation of the head of days. Now, I am currently making this new channel. This is going to be the first video, I guess, but it's just going to be a talking head. It's just going to be me. And if you're like, oh, I want some B-roll and I want to be entertained, what you're going to be entertained by here is this unique perspective that I feel has been lost to the LDS faith. And there's a lot of buzz that goes around about people getting excommunicated if you don't 100% stick with what's going on in the church. And I think this is a problem that the church has had for a long time, where you have a big chunk of the Mormon following saying, hey, I can't be this perfect cookie cutter, person. I can't do that. And yet the entire focus is on getting you to pay your tithing and getting you to accept that you're only worthy if the bishop tells you that you're worthy. And what I want to talk about here is how to, avoid that. I'm not talking about avoid personal accountability. That will always be yours. You have to take responsibility for that. What I'm talking about is trying to take accountability for what the church demands of you without any actual authority. Now, I want to talk about authority, because that's a big chunk of why I feel like saying this lost Mormon channel. No different than the complete idea of the apostasy. It's my claim that the apostasy itself is a natural phenomena of religious thought, that you have to have a falling away before you can have a new resurrected, reincarnated, scenario. Like, we are here to become better versions of ourselves every single day. And I think John Taylor said it best: truth is truth no matter where it comes from. And I think when people get wrapped up in too much dogma and modernity, and they can get lost in the weeds. And it's definitely obvious that anybody who goes to church, in today's modern, Mormon church, you are, constantly encountered with a barrage of boredom, for lack of a better word. And when I say boredom, I'm talking about people are just repeating the same things over and over and over again because they're starved for acceptance. And they will say whatever you want them to say as long as you tell them they're a good person. And you have to, I think it was Jordan Peterson who said, in order to think, you have to risk being offensive. And that's sort of what I'm doing right now, is I'm risking a little bit of offense, because people take this worldview of modern Mormonism and they cling onto it so hard that it doesn't allow them to enjoy the budding renaissance that we are going through right now. Now, I'm not here to change any of the doctrine at all. Actually, if anything, I'm not here to add anything more or take anything away. If anything, all I'm offering is a perspective. It's just a perspective. That's it. And I'm saying that this perspective did not exist 10 years ago for me. And 10 years ago, I got out of the United States military, and I just wanted to, delve right deep into these religious philosophical discussions surrounding, people's worldviews when it comes to Christianity, or when it comes to most religions. Like, how do you and why do you see God that way? Biggest question. And what is the difference between your version of persuading your neighbor to be a better person, and manipulating them to do what you want them to do? I mean, there's a very stark difference between that. And that's what this channel is about. It's about saying, hey, you remember what made Mormonism great was not Joseph Smith. It was Joseph Smith practicing a form of mysticism, a form of folk magic, of a ritual. And that's where I'm sort of pointing at. I'm like, guys, there's a reason these rituals were created. There's a reason your endowment and your covenants were created. Now, how much do you know about that? How much do you know about Melchizedek, right? And Adonizedek. right? And I know that that's probably the first time anyone's ever heard of Adonaizik, right? But you have to go look this stuff up. I can't, spoon feed all of this to you, but I will say the words, and I'll leave it out to you. Just go look it up. I think it's spelled Adonai, and then Zedek. Okay, and then you got MEL. I think it was MECHLI and ZEDEK. What I want to point out, and this is just an easy thing for you to understand. My job in the military was cryptologic linguistics and network engineering. I studied Arabic for 2 years, 4 months at the Defense Language Institute before I moved on to a different linguistic task, which was to understand the intricacies of how our internet communicates. And I became a subject matter expert in that field. I enjoyed it. And then 10 years ago, was given the opportunity to get out of the military. And just a few years ago in 2022, September 29th to be specific, I became a father. And as I did, a whole new set of switches and knobs were turned inside me where I wanted to share this information with my son, but in a way that a child can understand it. And so that's what this channel is about. It's like, I'm not going to talk over people's heads. I'm just going to say that priesthood that you hold so dear has a very specific origin. And have you noticed no one in this gigantic group talks about it? They don't talk about that specific origin because it predates Jesus. It predates Jesus. So if this interests you, please, by all means, if you're getting like these floods of emotions, like, who is this guy? Why is he covered with tattoos? Why is he saying all this stuff? Is it, oh, he must be he must be anti, they've already given you as many words to, get political about this. I am not here to be religiously political. I'm here to say a few things about my perception of what has been taught and then say, hey, here's a few things that I feel like have been lost. Myself included. I was lost to modernity for a very, very long time. And just recently was I inspired, pushed, guided, synchronized back into Mormonism the way that it has, with a very specific goal in mind. And that is to say, hi, here's some research that you probably didn't, you don't think about. And it really does coincide with all of our modern understandings of the quantum fields, the idea of parallel dimensions, and it's a different version of how to use the priesthood. And if you're not, and this goes for any religious experience, if you're not in the right mindset, if you're a Mormon and you're watching this, think of Moroni's promise. Think of James 1:5, okay? If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to all men liberally. And the Moroni's promise, where he says contrite heart, or contrite spirit, broken heart, those types of things. And what they're really going after is, do you have an earnest desire to know the mind of God, or do you want to know the mind of your church leader so you can be in good standing with him? Okay? And that's the difference that I really push here on, the Lost Mormon. I have another channel called Time Dad Alpha, and that really is more about being a father in the Alpha generation as a Gen X dad. And then I have another channel called The Last Mormon, and that one is quite a bit different. It still has to do with Mormonism and displaying, a very different perspective, I guess. I don't want to get too confusing here. But if you're interested in this type of stuff, if you're interested in dogma and mysticism and modernity and using AI, because that's sort of what The Last Mormon, emphasizes, is saying, hey, all these answers are going to be available. You're not going to go have to look them up anymore. But that internal practice, that thing that you practice inside, that thing that you call prayer, right? That deep, mindful, meditative experience where that still small voice becomes a little bit louder because you are taking that 10%, that tithe out of your day, right? And dedicating that to a practice, no different than they say, hey, it only takes a few times a week to dedicate, to physical activity. It takes a few times a week to dedicate to spiritual activity too. And you have to be able to expand that mindset in order to get some of these amazing gifts that are freely given. They are freely given. and they aren't kept from you, no different than the talent of playing the piano or the talent of singing. And think about the story of the talents, right? And the big difference of the guy who buries their talent and the guy who accentuates their talent. And that's sort of the process of the last Mormon, the last real true Mormon. Who was that? Because I'm looking at it as the first Mormon was Joseph Smith and the last Mormon was Joseph Smith. I think everything surrounding that character allows him to be the thing he claims he was. He claims that he was a prophet. I'm going, yeah, that prophet is just basically another category of mystic. That's all it is. There's no difference between a prophet, a guru, a saint, right? These are, even think of the name on the building, the Latter-day Saints. Might as well say the Latter-day Mystics. No different than you say, hey, this is a power forward and this is a point guard. Okay? They both play basketball. And so I sit here and I go, here's a guru and here is a prophet. They both entertain a mystic fortune-telling scenario, no different than your tarot card reader or your witch doctor. You know, I'm saying this discipline, like just like the discipline of basketball or martial arts or piano, is a discipline. And you do need a particular amount of direction. But once you start connecting with that, you know, the mind of God, that becomes your directing experience. And that's the type of stuff that I want to be able to teach, not just my son, but to anybody who's willing to listen. So if that's interesting to you, seriously, throw a comment down, ask a question, and, you know, come back and say, oh my gosh, what's he talking about today? Because that's what I'm doing. I'm sort of using this as a way to create a legacy and an interconnected, almost multidimensional experience with YouTube. I'm not here for money. I am not here for money. I am here to use YouTube in a very unique and different way. And if you want to talk about that, we can definitely talk about that. But if you want to talk about how Mormonism and AI are going to sort of, you know, work together again, just like Mormonism was created by the technology of the Declaration of Independence and those new aspects and perceptions of reality that were finally available because of the First Amendment, I'm saying that AI is going to be that again. All right, it's repeating itself. So, like I said, thanks for hanging out with me. I will see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day. Adios.